When you're out scouting your fields this summer, one of the most important things you can do is try to identify why you have problems in the field. And so we want to talk a little today about nutrient deficiencies and also about just other crop injury symptoms like herbicide damage.
Well, there's certainly a lot of things that can happen out in your crop. And this time of year, there's lots of things going on. Your neighbors are doing things across the fence. You've got some interactions going on, maybe with soil applied things, with in-furrow treatments, with over-the-top treatments. And it's important if you're working with your agronomist to say, look, here's everything that we've been doing out there, and here's what we did last year to see if there's any kind of interactions that are going on. When we're thinking about herbicides, a lot of times it happens in zones out in the field. Hey, this area, we're seeing something. The rest of the field, we aren't. Well, what's different about that area? Grid or zone soil sampling can really help you identify some of the problems. For example, we had a caller on our radio program recently that said, hey, I've got atrazine carryover into my soybeans. How do I know for sure that it's it? Because I thought it was iron deficiency chlorosis. My neighbor thinks it's atrazine carryover. What really is it? Well, when we look at those plants, yeah, you see some symptoms that could be one or the other. And it comes down to this: if you've got high pH spots out in your field, you're much more likely to have issues with carryover from a triazine like atrazine in those situations.
All right, so that leads me to the most important thing here. There's almost never a case where it's just one single thing going on in the field. So would he have had any atrazine problem without that soil, without the right soil type? No. Probably not. So is it really the atrazine's fault? Well, you could kind of blame that. You could also kind of blame the soil or the soil pH. So very often we find nutrient deficiencies out in fields that lead to unhealthy plants. And an unhealthy plant has more problems, period. It has more problems with disease, with bugs, with weeds, everything. It all started with nutrients or it started with drainage. So one of the most important nutrients you need to look for all the time and that everybody talks about is nitrogen, right? But there's also potassium that the symptoms look almost identical. Here's the big difference. So if you're out looking in your cornfield, for example, and you'll see this in most crops, but with nitrogen deficiency, it will always start at the lowest leaves of the plant, and it will start at the tip of the leaf and move its way, for the most part, up the midrib. Whereas potassium deficiency is going to start at the tip of the leaf, but it'll work its way out the outside of that leaf, the outside edges. So if you see outside edges of the leaf being yellow, that's where your problem is potassium, not nitrogen.
One of the things to pay attention with on your plants is, where do you see this problem? Is it on the lower part of the plant? Is it on the newest growth? When we're thinking about nutrient issues, if we've got problems at the bottom of the plant, it's nitrogen, phosphorus, or potassium. If we've got problems at the top of the plant, most likely we're looking at either one of the secondary nutrients or one of the micronutrients. And the reason why the N, P, and K in the plant are so vital, if a plant needs them for new growth, it'll rob them out of the older growth and pull them up to the new growth.
Well, they're mobile. That's the whole thing, whereas the micronutrients are not mobile. But the big thing here is, because even as a trained agronomist for many, many years, I can't always tell you what the nutrient deficiency is, whether it was zinc or manganese or sulfur, something like that. So do some plant tissue analysis. If you see plants that look weird, do some plant tissue analysis. Get an agronomist involved. There are so many things that could be going on here. It could be the seed, the herbicide, the insecticide. There could be interaction with all those nutrient deficiencies, bugs, diseases. You got to look at all these things. But the big thing is, look for patterns and get out there and try to really figure out what's going wrong, rather than say, oh, it's just a little problem. Because here's what I found over the years: little problems eventually become big problems. Solve it when it's a little problem.
One thing you don't want to become a big problem in your fields is our Weed of the Week. We'll show you how to stop it coming up next.